In the case of odd numbers, the first design has not, if the first is a prototype design, and how it's going to move electron in a manner and in a speed that is sufficient for the airbags to open it depends on your involvement and depends on you who would show us the result, and if you could bring us and help us in any way you can, it will be much appreciated. And with the same idea and concept, a full directional control is introduced. You can see these little arrows going on a sort of full directional fashion, which is in an odd number, 1, 3, and 5. We would try to hold 1, 3 constant, and the joystick would be number 5. In other case, you would hold 1 and 5 constant. The joystick would be number 3. You would lift it up at the point of number 3. So, this series is titled Ghost in the Shell. It is believed that it's the ghost in every living entity, and it is believed that it is a higher dimensional hologram that's responsible as the substance of realities, as the very substance that form the reality, which is known as a ghost in the shell, which is, if you like, a hologram that would in turn become the very substance of the reality. You may call it ghosts or holograms. So since this is a circular safety airbag, it is very, very appropriate to look into the case of collisions. So we will look into the idea of a ghost or a hologram, if you like. While before the collisions, you can see this star is in its favorable geometries. Now you may look into this star, you may say, well, something gone wrong with these stars. But if you examine it closely, with the same directional line here, it looks sort of fine by itself, but its geometry has been in a case of collision is twisted somehow. Keep in mind that this is a ghost or a hologram. So, is this geometry broken? If it is broken, what's the use of it? Why everything's living and everything's occupying the reality has a ghost? What's the use of the ghost? And I would like to introduce the working principle behind this airbag. As much as physically you try to shift the balance of the overall geometries, an equal and opposite ghost or hologram will be created, which is a higher forms of expression of the energy to counterbalance and countermeasure. So a hologram or a ghost will be found and formed in order to self-sustain and balance out the very substance which forms the reality. That it is the behavior of the existing geometries that you could take advantage of. This time it's not gravity. When you shift the balance of the geometries, they returns back a ghost that would counterbalance the shift that has just taken place. So this geometry has been broken, that you would very likely to expect the counterbalance X in terms of a ghost being found, or in terms of the hologram being formed by this very geometry in order to balance itself. So we will put the full extent of this airbag into a practical means. This is the actual makeup of the circular airbags that is going to provide air cushion in times of collisions, which is formed by a broken geometry you have just seen a moment ago. And well, it actually got a name. I put this together in a very earlier times, and is a blueprint quite some times ago. The name is left, right, and in the middle is a star. This diagram is plotted with the knowledge of Mr. Marco Rodin. It has a typical flux gaps in 3, 6, and 9. So I'll go into these diagrams. Excuse me, the times is, excuse me, I'll switch to next ones.